If you were boarding a massive ocean liner in the early 20th century and noticed Violet Jessop on the crew list, you might have felt one of two things: absolute terror or total reassurance. Because on one hand, Violet was a magnet for maritime disasters. She was on board 3 of the largest ships ever built when they met catastrophic fates. But on the other hand, she survived every single one of them. Today we are looking at the life of Violet Jessop, the woman history remembers as Miss Unsinkable. But as we'll find out, she was much more than just a lucky survivor. She was a fiercely independent woman working a grueling job in a world that wasn't built for her. Violet's survival story actually started long before she ever set foot on a ship. Born in Argentina in 1887 to Irish immigrants, she contracted tuberculosis as a child. The doctors gave her just months to live, but she ended up making a full recovery. When her father passed away, the family moved to England. To support her siblings, Violet followed in her mother's footsteps and became a ship stewardess. In 1908, this was not an easy job. She worked 17-hour days, catered to demanding, wealthy passengers, and earned very little. But Violet loved the independence of the sea. By 1911, she was working for the White Star Line on their brand new, ultra-luxurious flagship, the RMS Olympic. In September of that year, the Olympic collided with a British warship, HMS Hawke. The collision tore a massive hole in the Olympic's hull. Fortunately, the ship managed to limp back to port without sinking, and no one was killed. Violet chalked it up to a bad day at the office. She actually had no idea it was just a rehearsal for what was to come next. 7 months later, the White Star Line debuted the Olympic's sister ship, the RMS Titanic. Violet was transferred to the crew for its maiden voyage. On April 14, 1912, Violet was asleep in her bunk when the ship struck the iceberg. Because she was a stewardess, her job during the evacuation wasn't just to save herself. It was to keep the passengers calm. She stood on the deck, calmly demonstrating to non-English speaking passengers how to wear their life jackets. Eventually, an officer ordered her into Lifeboat 16. As the boat was being lowered into the freezing Atlantic, an officer shoved a bundled up package into her arms. It was a forgotten baby. Violet held that child tightly for hours in the dark until they were rescued by the Carpathia later that morning, the next morning. Most of us would have taken a desk job after that, but not Violet. 4 years later, World War I was raging, and the third of the sister ships from the White Star Line, the Britannic, was converted into a hospital ship. Violet volunteered to serve on it as a Red Cross nurse. On a November morning in 1916, sailing through the Aegean Sea, the Britannic hit a German sea mine. This explosion was massive. The ship began sinking fast, way faster than the Titanic. Violet ran to her cabin, but she didn't actually grab money or jewelry. She grabbed her toothbrush, because she remembered how much she missed having one after the Titanic sank. But her escape this time was an actual nightmare. The Titanic took more than 2.5 hours to sink, but the Lusitania was sinking so quickly that the giant propeller blades were still spinning out of the water. Violet had to jump for her life. She leapt from the lifeboat into the sea, but the suction pulled her under and she struck her head against the ship's keel. She managed to surface, gasping for air, and was pulled out of the water by another lifeboat. Years later, she went to a doctor for chronic headaches, and an x-ray revealed that during her leap from the Britannic, she had actually suffered a fractured skull and never even knew it. 3 massive ship disasters, 3 escapes. But here's the most incredible part of Violet Jessop's biography. After the war ended, she went right back to work. She didn't retire to a quiet life on land until 1950 after spending more than 40 years at sea. She retired to Suffolk, tended to her garden, and passed away in 1971 at the age of 83. Violet Jessop wasn't just a survivor of history's most famous maritime disasters. She was a woman who looked at the vast, unpredictable ocean, an ocean that tried to claim her 3 separate times, and decided that was exactly where she belonged. Thank you for joining us today on Lost Sparks History. Please make sure to subscribe and like below so we can make more videos just like this. Let me know if there's anybody in history that you want to see a video about, and we'll see you next time.